I'm ways.
Good. You need me to move? I got you. I'll just get out of here.
The pain. Can't get platforms out here?
Good point.
No question. Good. Perfect. Good morning.
What's the update on CJ?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's we're fortunate. You know, I think anytime you see a lower body extremity injury and in the manner in which some of those happen, you know, there's always a bad possibility with it, right? So, but you know, we got good news, and you know, we'll see how his body recovers, and you know, but as you guys know, with his personality, and you know, he's in a good place, and so excited for him to, when he's ready to practice, he'll be back out here, and we'll be good to go.
Is there a timetable on how any expectation, window?
Yeah, I think as you guys kind of learn me, I'm not really big on expectations or timetables, and I think that's part of everybody's body recovers differently. Like, I know his injury might be a little different, but like, say it's a hamstring. Some guys' hamstrings take longer, and some of that is us just kind of getting a feel of some of the guys. So I think it's, generally speaking, you know, I also think it's something you say day to day, and it becomes 2 weeks, and it's like, oh, is there a setback? What's happening? So, look, when guys are ready to practice, they're going to practice. When we get to the season, they're ready to go. They're going to go, and we're obviously going to push guys and making sure that we're rolling. But yeah, I don't like to necessarily put, like, you know, stamp times with it, and we'll see. You know, let's let the recovery kind of start and kind of see how that unfolds.
Joe, I know you're not going to be out there killing each other today, but it is going to be a padded practice.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, for you, the first time, you're going to see some physicality. You haven't had a chance to do that. How important is it for you to see that for the first time?
Yeah, well, you know, actually the intent of the practice today is, so we're going to be in pads to start. All right, and then when we get to the team periods, we're going to take the pads off, and it's part of the ramp-up period. And the part of it is, I've always been bothered by seeing coming out the first day of pads, and everyone's just adjusting and kind of, you know, thinking about all the pads as opposed to the detail, the physicality, the mindset of how we want to practice. And so today's more of the intentionality of, let's wake up. We're coming off an off day. Let's wake up with the mentality that we got to put our pads on. Let's get used to it. Let's go out. Let's go through Indy. Let's do a 7-on-7 period, and then we'll take the pads off and go through the team. And then tomorrow it's time to roll. And so that's more the intentionality of today. When we get to tomorrow, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's why you play football. We say, you know, we've been answering questions all along. It's like, hey, we got to say, wait till pads come on. Well, when pads come on, it's a lot less talking in you know, with your words and hopefully with your pads.
Just how do you feel about that safety group behind CJ? Now they're going to get some extra time out there. What are you looking for?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an extremely deep group. When you go into the off season, come out of the off season, you see how deep, just with experience, right? And then you got some of the young, you know, you draft a young guy like Jalen, and so. I think you guys kind of learned me by now that, you know, injuries happen, and I don't ever judge like hey, this was a good practice because we came out and there was no injuries or, you know, stuff. It's football, it's part of it, but you know, a group like that just taking advantage of all the reps, you know, it was good to get Kilgore, you know, reps kind of getting going, and but we're fortunate to have that. You know, it allows us to be able to play three safeties and have different type of personnel groupings, and you know, so we're fortunate with that.
Did the pads change halfway through practice, or was that just something you came up with?
No, I haven't, and it's all like just a mental notes, and just as I go, I just always been a little frustrated when guys are spending time thinking about their pads on the first day, and now we're going to put the ball down, let's go. And it's like, stop fixing your shoulder pads. Like you know, that rep didn't go that way because, oh, my chin strap wasn't where it needed to be. Or so it's like, let's get our focus on what it needs to be. And there's going to be some of that today, and I'm going to see some of that. I'm going to get on the guys for it. Like, just let's get ready to go. But, you know, I don't want any excuses when they come out tomorrow. It's like, hey, we've had the pads on. We've gone now. Let's go be a little physical with it.
I know he's in. How do you see Michael Hoyt's arc towards opening day?
Yeah, I mean, he's like any injury, right? We're gonna just see how it's like, you know, from the day-to-day standpoint. He's nothing's changed since the day one. With, if we told him he has to go 80 reps, he'll go all 80. And he goes full speed with it all, and then, you know, being mindful from an defensive perspective, or from a defensive perspective, and then his reps on special teams. And so, you know, we've had a great plan with him. We're working, you know, hand in hand in terms of, you know, the volume and the reps as we go, but he's handling it great, and he's got a great mindset about, you know, about it.
Does the rain impact him, or even any of the guys kind of coming back from things about how much you want to use him, or
No.
use him?
No, I think, we evaluate the field every day, and look, it's, you come out here, I think the field is, our grounds crew and St. John Fish done an incredible job with the field, and so, I'm always walking around the field looking at the surfaces, seeing how guys are kind of handling it. We've had a couple of rainy practices, what is the cumulative effect of it, but no, our thought is let's go out there today and let's go practice, and no limitations from a field standpoint.
Hey, Joe, we've seen just about every combination possible, I think, on that D-line so far. How big of a puzzle is that to put together? Because it looks like you've got guys playing all kinds of places and different guys coming in. How big of a puzzle is that?
Yeah, I mean it's a big puzzle, but like it's a stupid analogy, but when you get a box of a lot of pieces in a puzzle. It takes a while and it's hard to put together, but we hope from a defense perspective, when offenses are preparing for us, it makes it hard for them as well of trying to figure out where guys are going to be. And we're challenging guys, putting them in different positions. There's a lot of different techniques that we're asking and seeing who can handle some of the techniques. And again, once the shoulder pads come on with some of the hand placement and being able to see who can and cannot do things, we're trying to I've always really not gave a dang about the defense and what the defense needed, in practices, but I'm trying to obviously get our offense where it needs to be, but put the head coach hat and working hand in hand with Jim, but like, okay, hey, what kind of run do you need for this to be able to see this guy in this position? Let's get that. And so the intentionality in the practice isn't just for me now, just being a solely focused on what offensive plays I need to get and how we want to get it, but also, hey, what do we need to see out of these reps from some of the defensive perspectives, from the techniques and the fits, and that's been a big thing. But yeah, just challenging a lot of guys to see what reps they can and cannot handle, and then cleaning it up and seeing where it kind of goes from there. We've put in a lot of volume purposely, right? And I think you put a lot on, and then you can see what the guys can handle, and then you dial it back as we get tighter this season.
Joe, today is Marv Levy's 100th birthday. I mean, as a guy who sat in this chair and knows what Marv has meant to this organization, can I talk about what he's meant to you in this organization as well? You met him.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a William Mary. He has William Mary ties as well. So even going back to William Mary days, I used to walk into that building every single day, and you saw a picture of him on the wall, and the success that he had here. I had an opportunity when I got the job to talk to him, and he's given me wisdom, which is unbelievable. 101 year. I'm just hoping to get to 37, and and he's just as sharp as it gets. And for a guy that knows didn't care about the weather, wanted it hard, right? When it's too hard for them, it's just right for us. It's there might be a couple head coaches that have been since him, but the mindset, the mentality, how the Buffalo Bills, how the organization that he, the ship that he led, nothing's going to change. And so, happy birthday to Marv Levy, 101, and can't fathom that. So, hope he enjoys his day.
Joe, when it comes to Jim Leonard, what have you learned more about him in the 7 months that you've now been together beyond what your initial impressions were?
I've always talked. I've always talked. You don't want a staff of just everybody that thinks like you, right? And Jim doesn't think like me, but he is always thinking. And I love that about him, in a sense of his openness, his mentality, his communication style. He's not going to just necessarily hey, this is what we have to do, and we're going to do it no matter what we have or who we have with it. And right now we're trying to figure all that out, right? But when I interviewed him, it wasn't, hey, I just want the Denver Broncos defense. Just tell me the Denver Broncos defense. It was, hey, let's talk through some of these guys. What would be the best way to utilize these guys? This is my vision, how I want. Let's see what his kind of thoughts were, and just seeing how his brain is always turning and thinking in different ways, and knowing like, hey, this is some things that, hey, I haven't been a part of this in the past, but I think this is something that could be good for our defense. So, hey, this is our guys are handling this. I want to add this to the plate, and I kind of love that about him, and us just being able to work. We're constantly talking in the communication, but everything that I had from that interview, from the first experience to now, it's all been positive, and I love having him, on our side. That's for sure.
And you both have the same attacking mindset when it comes to your units. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I don't believe that your offense and your defense should have different personalities. And we're obviously going to find out what it's going to take to win the football game and go through that. And injuries happen. It's a matchup league as well, right? As we go through it, but the personality of your team shouldn't be different. Depending on who you're playing and what you're about. And sometimes people confuse having just normal conversation for not having a physical, like I don't have to yell to make sure that we're going to be a physical football team, or I don't need him to be boisterous and just yelling and so that our guys are running the football. Like sometimes you can just sit there and have a normal conversation and know that there's a standard by how we're going to go, and I respect that about him.
Joe, with Jackson Hall, so you guys were comfortable putting a lot on his plate last year. Now that he has a year under his belt, how do you see him this point in camp? Just kind of what he's able to do and what his trajectory could be this season.
Yeah, I mean, we put so much on his plate last year, and we go into every offseason saying like, okay, well, what's next, right? What's next? And he's a brilliant human, and he can handle so much, and what he can do. From a football standpoint is something that a lot of tight ends can't do, and it's such a unique perspective. We joke with him all the time that whatever his height was when he started the season, he probably shrunk 4 inches last year with what we were asking him to do, but man, he loves it. He is a football guy, and I know there's probably no one that woke up, even if it's not going to be a crazy physical practice, just getting used to the technique and the detail, there's nobody that wakes up wanting pads more than Jackson Hall is.
I know you've worked with Pete before, but since you've been out here with him again, how much has he kind of maybe influence or help to kind of see things maybe that you don't see sometimes that you can kind of mesh together?
Yeah, I rely on Pete. I mean, I've relied on Pete for the last 10 years of my career, right? And he has such a unique perspective of seeing things, thinking objectively, not confusing the results for, hey, if something was good, his standards and his details. He sees things. We break a huddle and he can see right away if something's wrong. And I love that about him. So it allows me to be a head coach. I've said all along, and I'm way more involved offensively now than I was necessarily in the OTAs, right? But Pete has allowed me to, when I need to do things, that the ship keeps going, and he knows exactly how I'm thinking right now, and I trust him wholeheartedly with it all. So when I have a question on, hey, how I want to do things offensively, or hey, what do you think, he's obviously the first one I go to.
Joe, how much have you been able to figure out with that left guard competition, and how much does it change now the pads are coming?
Yeah, I mean, it's for offensive line, defensive line, when pads come on is when football is being played. And that's not to say that, like, hey, it's a waste of time what we've been doing. There's nothing about that. Like, I want to make sure, I think these practices are critical, because who can play with technique without needing pads, in the detail. But there is a finishing component. There is a being able to play with your pads and grounded. And I think that when the pads come on, I think that's critical. And a lot of people talk just left tackle, but a lot of that also is the communication with Dion at left tackle, and there's so it puts a challenge on Dion as well. There's so many different factors with it. So I've liked where the guys are at, but as we continue to get going, there's going to be a lot of intentionality about seeing what we need to see out of that position.
Yo, what stood out to you about Skyler Bell so far?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
What stood out to you smart about Skyler Bell?
He just goes. He I think he's doing an incredible job of, right, wrong, or different. I see him following DJ. And one thing about DJ Moore is if you got to pull him back. And I respect Skyler that he's kind of embraced it and kind of rolls. He knows that he has to do offense, special teams, like whatever it takes. And and he's handled it well. He doesn't talk a lot. But he flies around the football field and he looks like he's enjoying football and understand he has such a professional approach, and when he's had opportunity to make plays, he's made them, and just continuing to challenge him and see what he can handle as we go.
Joe, a year ago there was uncertainty over James Cook with his contract situation. What did he show you last year, and what are your expectations for him this year, given what he was able to do?
Yeah, I think you saw the best running back in the league last year. You saw how he showed up for camp last year, right? You can argue he was the best player on the field, and everything that he's gotten, he's deserved, right? Like, you don't just get a contract without doing on the football field, and he had such an incredible season last year. And without diving into exactly, this is what I told him, like, he's got to get better. Right, like we can't take steps, backwards, and he was hard on him. He put the ball on the ground the other day. Like, he knows that can't happen, right? And but I expect James Cook to take another step this year in different elements of his game and continue to be the workhorse, from a runner, and he wants it, right? And there's no comfort level to him. He comes out here. I mean, he's ready to go, and it's no different. Like, you see a guy that's just like last year when he showed up, it's like, I want a contract. You see the same mindset, how he approaches. That's who he is.
Joe, Ian Wheeler is a running back you guys had in the UFL. I guess two-part question first. What have you liked about about him so far? And then secondly, how do you go about kind of scouting a league like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, he didn't get an off season with us. Go straight from playing in the UFL to didn't really get even an off season from that. Go straight into it. So at least from a football shape standpoint, he was conditioned from that. But it's not like he had an opportunity to meet with a coach prior to getting here, showing up to camp. And so we put a lot on our running backs' plates, both from a footwork standpoint, protections, and man, he's extremely bright. And for him to be able to handle it, like sometimes you give a guy grace when they first get here. A guy like Pettis, like if he's lined up in the wrong split it's like, hey, he's got to work towards it. But but there's nothing that Ian's done that I'm like, this guy feels out of place or he's struggling to learn. It's been pretty impressive from that. And that's a perk of what that league kind of is, right? It allows us the opportunity for guys that might not have opportunities in the NFL, but they go take advantage of the opportunities that they got in that league. And he obviously did a great job in it. And our personnel is always staying and looking across. And you see what was it, the kicker in Detroit a couple of years ago, right? And now he's one of the best in the league. And so if you're playing football, you're getting evaluated. And credit our guys for seeing it, finding it, and him for coming in ready to go. He's obviously a vet, from that perspective. He can play in a special teams role, punt return gunner. He plays wide receivers, played from a long time. I remember him coming out, had a really good workout. It's hard on wide receivers that aren't on a roster when you start camp, but it's hard on them when they're not on a roster in OTAs as well. You go through, because there's one thing of training and getting in shape, but there's another thing of like I'm going through routes and I'm getting plays and the mental and working through it. And sometimes it's hard when you sign a guy and it's like, what kind of shape he's in? Is he going to be able to come out and practice and kind of go? And man, he went through the workout and you can tell that it's a guy that's been working and ready to go. And we'll continue to ramp him up, as camp goes.
Joe, what are ways that you can continue to push Josh Allen to 30, accomplish so much now that you're head coach?
Yeah, I Josh knows I want him to absolutely dominate every single practice, and I'm purposely putting him in tough situations. And like I said, I get with Jim and we talk through some coverages, and I'm like, this is the worst possible look for this play. Run it. Like, can I get this for this? And because I want to see Josh kind of handle it and and progress. And hey, I have to move off the pocket. And sometimes you guys know I want Josh to miss some throws because it gives them opportunities to kind of talk through and kind of see it. But I want him to absolutely come out and ready to just absolutely dominate our defense every single day, and kind of go with it. So not saying that's ever been an issue with him, but it's just a challenge to him every time when he misses a throw or whatnot. It's like subtle jabs, but we know his greatness, but he doesn't get comfortable, but it's my job to also make sure he doesn't ever get comfortable.
Do you think it'll help him seeing a different defense? Jim's defense after seeing Sean's defense over and over and over again? Yeah, no, it's such a dumb thing, but yeah, no, that's real. It's you get to, you're a backup quarterback and you come out to practice, against Sean and you'd see some things and it's new looks to you where Josh was like, all right, I know what's happening here because I've just gone against it for so long, or I know the safety's tendency just from practicing against him. Where now being at a new defense, it's actually been a positive from that perspective because there's a lot of nuances that Josh hasn't figured out yet, and it's his challenge to like, man, I want to get it, or it's like, man, I should have took the protection that way. And so anytime we can keep him challenged, that's part of our job. And so that's where it's like trying to get him the toughest looks possible to make him have to progress and kind of work through it, as opposed to, hey, this is a cover two beater. Hey Jim, what do you got here? I got cover two. It's like that's not going to do anything for us on this play. And so so continuing to challenge him, but he's doing a great job of connecting with the guys, leading the guys, and I'm loving where he's at so far. Thanks, guys. Thank you.